So in this video, I just was going to show you how to create an HTML text editor using the Syncfusion JavaScript controls. So I've got a sample demo file here with just a couple fields in it and a web viewer component on it for the HTML editor. So if we go in and we look at my database, we can see here I've got the HTML editor and then a preferences table. So preferences just has a single field in it that we use for the template. And then in the HTML editor, I've got an HTML field and a text field. So super easy. And then we've got that primary key value in there too. So here we can see I've got just a record in the database. I've got my template here, which is the HTML for the web viewer. And then here is the HTML and the text that got extracted from the web viewer. So if we go into layout mode and we look at this layout, all the web viewer does is it takes the template and then it drops the content from our HTML field into it for a substitution. And then if we look at the web viewer setup, we've got the interaction with web viewer and we've got allow JavaScript to perform FileMaker scripts in there. So if we go back in here, we can see it's rendered. We've got some bold text, italic text, and an image. And if we look in the HTML field in here, we can see here's the actual value. And then we also convert that to just plain text in here too. The image doesn't come through in there. But basically, that would allow you to use perhaps this content here that you did graphically with something like MailChimp, where you're going to send an HTML and a text version to it for sending marketing messages. And then what this does is it's just got a script in here that gets fired off when it's updated, and that goes in and updates the HTML field. And then if MBS is installed, we call a function in there that will convert HTML to plain text. I'm sure there's other ways to do it, maybe with JavaScript or other things, but we generally use MBS for a lot of things. So we've just got that in there already. And then if we look at the HTML in the actual template itself, we can pull this up. We've got a link to the documentation for all the different options in the rich text editor, but we include a bunch of library files, and then it's super simple HTML in here. We've got this content tag in here, which is going to drop the existing content from the HTML field into that div for this. And then here is the coding for the editor. So this is really simple stuff here. We can get a free license from the Syncfusion people, so it doesn't show that message up on the top. And then here we go out and we're creating the text editor, and we've got some default toolbar settings that we're using in there. There's a lot of toolbar items, so it makes sense to kind of whittle that down to something that's maybe a little bit easier. And then when there's a change in the web viewer, we're going to call that update status. And update status is this function right in here, which is then going to call the FileMaker script. So it grabs the div value for the content in here, and then it calls the FileMaker script update HTML field, passes the text. And that's just going to call that FileMaker script, which is going to update these two fields in here. So as you can see, it's pretty easy to create a very feature-rich HTML editor in FileMaker with the Syncfusion library.